Ladies and gentlemen, investing in emerging technologies, hype and IPO. Let me please invite moderators, Oljas Kul, founder of Investbank, and our honored speakers. Nии Лех, principal, Alpha Intelligence Capital. Tирто Aджи, founding partner of Palapa Ventures and Samudra Pacific VC funds. Peter Findlay, partner at Ancorless Bangladesh. Sanjar Suleymanov, director, Visa Direct, Central Asia and Azerbaijan. Pedro Santos Vieira, managing partner, 500 Global. Dennis Kalinin, Asia BD manager, Runa Capital. Your applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, to our speakers. And please, dear speakers and dear moderators, welcome to the stage. Yeah, you can find the places with this titles on it.
Mic check. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm giving the mic to Oljas. Oljas,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
have a nice session.
Let's give a hand to our wonderful host. All right. So, welcome everyone. Long time no see. Don't worry, we have an app for this event because there's thousand over participants. Obviously, we're giving everyone a notification that this wonderful first panel of today is starting. So I'm your moderator here today, Oljas Jiankul, founder of Investbank. Let me start by introducing the theme, the topic of this panel, and then introducing our wonderful participants. So I'm not an AI, so I'm going to use a cheat sheet. This panel is called Investing in Emerging Technologies, Hype versus Hypo. What does that mean exactly? Let's dwell on that for a second. Emerging technologies typically refers to technologies that are just up and coming, that haven't matured yet, but have the potential to change life as we know it, to make long-lasting impact and positive returns. Hype, as we know, means when something is hyped up, but not necessarily important. For example, we know a lot of canine-related crypto tokens that are not necessarily important. That could be an example of hype. Whereas high potential is something that may or may not have hype, but has that long-lasting potential to change our lives. And we have a wonderful panel of amazing experts here today to delve on different distinctions between what exactly makes and creates hype and what exactly creates high potential, and how to distinguish between those two facts. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to quickly introduce the panel and then pass around the microphone to everyone. And because I'm a little bit lazy, I'll get the participants to introduce themselves. But a simple introduction, I think, won't suffice for today. So I'm going to drop some opening questions. So after your introduction, our esteemed speakers, please take a minute to share your thoughts on the opening remarks. And that will kick off the first conversation for today. So today we have speakers. Nии Лех, principal, Alpha Intelligence Capital. Let's give her a hand. Tирто Аджи, founding partner of Palapa Ventures and Samudra Pacific VC funds. Peter Findlay, partner at Ancorless Bangladesh. Sanjar Suleymanov, Director, Visa Direct, Central Asia and Azerbaijan. Pedro Santos Vieira, Managing Partner, 500 Global. Dennis Kalinin, Asia Business Development Manager, Runa Capital. and a fellow person who lives in Singapore. If I apologize if I butchered someone's name, please feel free to butcher mine. So my name is Oljas, please call me Oz. So first word, Ni, please, if I could trouble you for an introduction. And the question for opening remarks would be the following. In the context of your unique background and experience, what are some effective strategies for differentiating between technologies that are experiencing temporary hype and those that possess true high potential for lasting impact and returns? What factors are the most critical to consider in this context? And please feel free to share examples from your personal life or your personal journey.
Can you hear me? Yeah, great. As Oz mentioned, I'm Nhi. I am at Alpha Intelligence Capital. We are a top 5 global fund investing in AI. My background is I have my PhD in stem cell engineering and started my AI journey about 5 years ago. You've probably heard a lot about AI. So AI as a whole field right now is extremely hyped up. In the space, one way to identify what's hype and what's high potential is to look at the team. If you've got a team that is essentially a trifecta team, then you've probably got something there, despite all the hype that's there. So what do I mean by a trifecta team? I'm talking about people who actually understand the AI technology itself, understand the limitation, understand the opportunity of it in order to be able to maximize the advantages that you have by using AI. Not everything needs to be AI. I mean, some things, it's like having a Lamborghini. You might not always need a Lamborghini. Sometimes a skateboard or a bicycle is sufficient. So sometimes not everything requires AI, but if you have the technical advantage of understanding it, then you know when to use AI. Second is, do you have expertise in the market that you are going into? So do you know how to sell to the customers, talk to customers? That's extremely important. If you know AI but you don't know your customer, then you have technology but not a product. And the last is, can you execute very quickly? Lots of companies are gonna start in this space. Not all of them will survive. So if you can execute quickly but scale also at mass, then you can really survive. So I'll stop there for now.
Thank you very much. That was short and sweet. But can I just trouble you with one follow-up? Hype then. What is hype in your opinion?
Let's start with the AI, going back to the AI, hype. Everybody wants to build bigger, more data, and bigger isn't always better. I think we're moving in a direction where we're starting to see that smaller models and very fine-tuned for applications have really great advantages. And so we need to be moving in that direction and stop focusing on companies that spend more compute power, more money, more time building much, much, much bigger parameters, models. It's not sufficient and necessary for everything.
Thank you very much. Let's give a hand to that wonderful opening remarks. Next, Tirto Aджи, founding partner of Palapa Ventures and Samudra Pacific VC funds. But before I pass the microphone to our next esteemed speaker, I just want to give a heads up that Tирто, like many here today, has a lot of meetings lined up, so he might need to step away mid-speech or mid-questions. So if that happens, please don't get surprised. Please.
Thank you, Oz. It's very nice to be here, and I'm so happy to be part of this forum. And thank you for the organizers and distinguished guests for inviting me here. It's my first time in Almaty, first time in Kazakhstan. It's fantastic feeling to be welcome and experience the hospitality. So my background, my name is Tирто. I'm 30 years in Silicon Valley. I'm originally from Indonesia, born and raised. I moved as a student to Silicon Valley, studied computer science, and worked for Yahoo for 10 years in the AI space. So I experienced the initial days of the internet when they are building a lot of the data analytics. Without knowing it, you guys are using AI every day. For example, for your spam filter when checking emails, for your advertising, the targeting, if you check your Facebook, Instagram, or news, and then all kinds of aspects in your life without even realizing it. And what happened with the hype, if I could address that, is actually, to me, as a practitioner, it's not hype at all, because this is the first time in the longest history that I can remember working in AI, that something like ChatGPT that OpenAI sort of roll out in just 5 weeks, I believe, hits 100 million users, which is amazing. Never in the history of product launch, not even Facebook or Snapchat or TikTok, right? So I don't believe it's hype, because compare that to crypto, for example. I don't see any intrinsic value. I'm also a crypto investor, by the way, but mostly on the pick and shuffle businesses, not real the crypto kitty kind of coins and stuff like that. You can see the exact value that you can extract from ChatGPT. Right now, we're seeing a lot of companies that we are working with that leveraging AI and this technology of near AGI, so to speak, to create fantastic solutions in healthcare, e-commerce, in finance, in a lot of the aspects that we've seen in the industry. So either you jump on the board or you just left out. I think it's very important to stress that distinction between the hype and the real values that you can bring. With that, I open to another question.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll get to the Q&A part in a minute. Thank you for that opening remarks. Next, I want to pass the microphone to Peter Finlay, partner at Anchorless Bangladesh.
Hello. Hi. Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm a partner at Anchorless Bangladesh and have been investing in the region for about 5 years. What I did is, prior to becoming a partner at Anchorless Bangladesh, I was a senior portfolio manager at BlackRock, running their systematic fixed income investing, which included emerging markets. And what happened is, in 2017, I saw basically the paper about transformers. And as I'd been doing systematic investing for a while, I knew that there were significant limitations of AI up until that point in time. If you were running an AI model to run trading up until 2017, it was probably pretty bad. So I myself didn't think it was very good. Starting in 2017, you see this revolution, and basically the power of AI from basically 2000 to 2017 improved a factor of 4. Since 2017 until now, it's improved about a factor 2,000. That's a lot. And so what I started doing in my journey is, basically I'm partnered with Stanford University and try to bring the technologies from basically, I would say, the innovation to this part of the world to figure out how we can get essentially localized solutions that work for the populations in this area that actually use the AI in sort of, I would call it, an appropriate manner, and specifically along those lines. So I'm also one of the original investors of Stability AI. And basically that there are alternatives to ChatGPT, and specifically some open source alternatives. I'm basically trying to bring open source. I think that ChatGPT, while it had a lot of take-up, there are alternatives, and I think it's very important for people to sort of recognize that there are alternatives, because ChatGPT will consume your data, and I think not everyone is going to want to give all of their data over to ChatGPT, and people might not be aware of some of the solutions. And I guess when it comes to specifically how do I differentiate what to invest in, when I talk with an AI company, I just ask them a very simple question: how many parameters is in your model? And from that answer, you can generally determine if something is hype or not. The answer, by the way, ChatGPT has 20 billion. There are competitors in and around basically 13 billion. Some of the larger models are actually around 175 billion. But if you're using something off the shelf without actually knowing how many parameters it is, it might be significantly lower than that. So if you're getting potentially poor results out of the AI, it might just purely be a function of the wrong model. So just trying to get people to use the right models in the right places with the right size by itself can be something that allows people to solve problems locally.
Thank you. Thank you for that important distinction, Peter. Very useful. Next, I want to pass the microphone to my fellow countryman, Sanjar Suleymanov, Director, Visa Direct, Central Asia and Azerbaijan. Please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank organizers to let me on this panel. I'm on these honored speakers, and what I can say, I am leading the Visa Direct platform here in Central Asia and Azerbaijan. I cannot say that we are using currently AI, and that's in terms of the product, but we use as a Visa AI mostly in cybersecurity, that we identify fraudulent transactions, and Visa been using that from 1993. Of course, currently we use more sophisticated models, and we have a lot of now complaints from different players that we actually use it more frequently and identify these fraudulent and compliant cases. But that actually helps us to protect us, the issuers and the users, with more sophisticated way. So, and in terms of the hype and hypo, I cannot say that is hype, but I can see there is still, let's say, not the usage that people were anticipated before. For me, it's like blockchain and maybe VR and AR. Hopefully, Apple next week will show something great that will, transform everyone's, view how to use the VR and AR and what the new use case it could be. But with, let's say, with blockchain and crypto, Visa has always been, in terms of blockchain, we we don't use it on primarily on everyday. But we have only new products like B2B Connect. It's like cross-border transfers that we use the blockchain technology. Plus, in terms of crypto, it's all about the Visa is not trying to be in the crypto game. We just want to merge the fiat and the crypto. So we want somewhere like network of network. That's where we see the most potential. We as the largest, let's say, fintech and the first fintech in the world to be in the players. And we actually eagerly looking for new system and technologies that offers by startups, that venture funds have this in portfolio, so we can be in this game. So that's maybe my first remarks on that topic.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. There's certainly a lot of AI today. It's not surprising. Next, I'd like to pass the microphone to Pedro Santos Vieira, Managing Partner, 500 Global. Please.
Work? It does. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you again to the organization for inviting us here today. Briefly on me, so as a founder in digital health and sustainability in the Valley, sold that company and became an angel investor and now a VC. Not an expert in AI per se, invest in a sector agnostic way. As a VC, I've been working with 500 Global, which I think most people here will know. It's a multi-stage investment firm with a family of funds around the world. The most recent of them being 500 Georgia, which is the fund that I am the partner for. Between the hype and the high potential, I think that some people do try to draw a pretty solid line. Actually, I think if we think of the Gartner hype cycle, it's really not. There's a lot of things that are hype before they actually show their high potential. And there's a few things that indeed are just hype. And what we try to do with our investment programs and our acceleration programs, like the one we're running out of Tbilisi now, is we spend a lot of time with the companies making sure that they're validating the market need with real use cases, and that we go deep on the functionality of what their companies and their services have to offer, and we try to understand if there's actually substance to what they're trying to build. And on top of that substance, is there actually a viable, feasible business model to pay for it? And we spend probably 3/4 of our time making sure that the companies do get these two things right, because with these two things in place, then we can help them scale faster and more efficiently. So a lot of things start with hype, and they die because the market conditions are not right, because the regulation is not in place, because a series of factors that are extraneous to the company, and they die at that hype stage, and we may perceive them as this was just hype and no substance. You can think of, for example, Google Wave when it died, and no one here probably knows what Google Wave was, But you can think of Slack now, and Google Wave could have been Slack, but it just wasn't the right time. So some things have hype and die at that stage before they reach the high potential. Others do get to the high potential. We just try to make sure that we're working with our founders to guarantee that it's not just hype, that the high potential is actually there. So I'll stop here, and then happy to continue the conversation later.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's give Pedro a hand. Before I introduce our last participant of the panel, Dennis, I have a personal request. Can we change seats? Because a moderator shouldn't really be sitting in the middle. It's counterintuitive. So can we, yeah. I don't know why they set me here. Thank you. All right, perfect. Now, I did this little trick. Now our last participant, Dennis Kalinin, Asia Pacific Business Development Manager, Runa Capital. Please, a word to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's a really great opportunity. My first time in Almaty. Really like the city. So yeah, really looking forward to our discussion today. A few words about Runa. Runa has been around since 2010. So we are an early stage B2B SaaS and deep tech investor based out of Luxembourg. So we have like $500 million under management, invested in over 100 companies around the globe, mostly Europe and the US. So I'm based in Singapore. I'm running our office in Asia. So a few words about like our approach towards hype. For us, being a deep tech investor, of course, there's a lot of hype in deep tech, and we pretty much started our deep tech journey from cloud infrastructure. And at that time, in 2010, cloud infrastructure was quite a big thing, and hype actually helped cloud infrastructure with adoption to large enterprises like Coca-Cola, BMW. They all started to adopt cloud infrastructure, also due to the hype. So it actually can be a good thing, but how to differentiate? So there are multiple approaches to this. For us, we've really been focused on investing in shovels rather than gold miners. So we prefer to invest in infrastructure. We, for example, invested in a company called NGINX, which is probably most of you don't know, but it's basically an infrastructure that powers 30% of all the global websites. And we sold this company to F5 Network for $700 million. So, and for AI, of course, everyone is talking about AI. Currently, like, there's a lot of hype around this, and I really think that AI can, well, change and disrupt a lot of industries. We've seen, for example, how AI was really disrupting EdTech market. Like, for example, if you know the company called Check, it's a US publicly traded company, $2 billion market cap, and they lost like 50% of their market cap with overnight, just because ChatGPT basically taken over the whole traffic from their website. So this is one of the examples which says that, well, for example, AI, it's really real. We haven't been really active in AI, but we've been investing in quantum computing and photonics computing, which is basically the infrastructure which will power the AI, which will power all the difficult optimization problems that currently we're seeing, like, for example, in drug discovery, in energy production, in many different spaces. So yeah, it's really hard to differentiate like what is hype, what is not. Well, probably it would be like overestimation to say that we know for sure what we can judge that some technologies will fly and some of them not. But yeah, I think it's really good approach to try to really bet on technologies that will leverage any like outcomes of the technological stack that will dominate. So yeah, that's pretty much our approach. I will
Awesome.
Here as well.
Thank you very much. Let's give a hand to our wonderful panelists. And because we have been so efficient about the introductions and the opening remarks, we'll get more time for the Q&A. And also, of course, you're very welcome. If you have any news, any developments to share during your questions, please feel free to do so. But before we proceed further, I want to confess I lied because Denise isn't our last participant. There is a surprise attendant to this panel, and that's ChatGPT, of course, what we would do without ChatGPT. So we prompted ChatGPT with the information about this forum and asked it to introduce itself. The introduction was very long. ChatGPT was very wordy, so I'm going to read the short version. Introducing ChatGPT as a participant can be an exciting addition, says ChatGPT. Another very special participant on our panel today is OpenAI's ChatGPT, a leading-edge artificial intelligence model trained to understand and generate human-like text based on input it receives. And it goes on. So unlike you, that system is not very modest. So let's take a book from its page. There will be 3 types of questions today. One type of question is from ChatGPT. Another type of question is from the audience. Please, if you have a question for our wonderful panelists, feel free to post it via the app. It works. Or feel free to raise a hand and take the microphone. And their third category, we're going to abuse our position as organizers a little bit and ask questions from our team. So I will start off with a question from ChatGPT, and I'm going to address that question to Nии. You're obviously very experienced in AI, and I'm sure you have dwelled on various aspects of it, but that's why I think this question from an AI is very relevant for you. Ethical considerations of AI. It is projected that 15% of the world's workforce, at the very least. In certain projections, over 400 million people. In certain projections, certain industries are going to be massively affected by the advance of AI. Of course, it is an emerging technology that can be said that is proven, and it's coming. So in your opinion, how do we deal with those ethical considerations?
That's a great question. And remind me, was that a ChatGPT question?
Yes.
Excellent. It's very self-aware of it. I think...
I can show you the video, yeah. It is ChatGPT.
Ethically, I'll answer your question and I'll expand on it, but that's okay. Ethically, some jobs will go away. That's the truth of it. Jobs that are routinely outsourced now, think basic web development that has, it's routine, it can be sort of automated, but you don't have the time to do it. Those automations will go away. Basic regurgitation of creativity, that will go away. Basic data analysis, that will go away. But that's the thing though. Those mundane things go away so that we can spend more time on new tasks that require higher level thinking, higher level creativity. Let me give you an example. NVIDIA has a podcast, and they brought in somebody to talk about video gaming and movies. When stop motion, if you've seen those movies like Nightmare Before Christmas and those kinds of clay animation, when that came out, movie developers were entirely scared that they were going to do away with jobs. And that wasn't entirely true. It actually increased that movie workforce significantly because it lowered the barrier to entry for people to get into that field. So you no longer had to know physics, materials, art, and engineering to get into that field. You could be creative and go into that field and allow the stop animation, clay animation to be your assistant. That's what's going to happen with AI. Now I'm going to expand a little bit on the ethical considerations. There are significant ethical considerations. Bias will be a major issue depending on the model that you use. So there's lots of models that are alternatives to ChatGPT. Bias is going to be a major issue. 97% of the text that ChatGPT or the OpenAI's model that powers ChatGPT is built on is in English. That means contextually and culturally, it's very English. There's a significant part of the world that doesn't operate in English. So just keep that in mind, that certain things that are culturally acceptable in English might not be acceptable elsewhere. So just take that with a grain of salt. Women, major biases against women, major biases against countries that it considers poor. Like, just keep that in mind there's this concept of responsible use of AI, meaning that it's a tool. You just need to remember that it is not a person, so don't take everything that it says with a grain of salt. And that ethic consideration is it's on us. It's on the people who develop the technology and continue to innovate on the technology to be responsible for it.
If I can just have a short follow-up, how do we make those decisions? I mean, do you think there is a framework? Do you think it's just very personal because it's very tailored? Is there a way to effectively make those decisions?
I think so. I don't know yet because it's still developing. I think there are certain things. Think of the Geneva Convention for Human Rights. We all, as people, have different cultural understanding of what we think is important, etc. But we generally believe, generally, most of the time, killing people is bad, right? So I think there has to be the equivalence of a Geneva Convention that sets the standard for responsible AI development and use. The other way that we can think about it is thinking about the basic tests that we as people have to do to ensure that we can be responsible citizens operating within our societies. If you want to drive, you have to take a driver's test to ensure that you know how to drive, you understand the rules of the road. So why don't we have industry-specific tests like that to ensure that AI can actually be used in those industries? And we set that framework so that AI is that tool, but we define that based on what we need, vertical specific, and not just broad across the board.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Let's give Nии a hand. So, from what I'm hearing, put the gun in the trained hands, not in the untrained hands. Makes a lot of sense. By the way, if there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to raise your hand, and someone will approach you. Если, уважаемые, если кто-то поднимет руку, можно микрофон? Микрофон человеку, пожалуйста. Вопрос?
Dear speakers, thanks for coming. I have a question on your opinion, which companies are ahead of the game in the AI industry at the moment, and which companies has a potential to be in the game, and in which industries do you believe the AI would be applicable in the future?
Who wants to take that question? Peter, if I may trouble you, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, there is. Okay. Have to have it in the middle. Okay. Yeah, so when I'm looking right now at actual companies to invest in, right, you see hundreds and thousands of similar companies. And it's very, very hard to differentiate what you're investing in. So one, for what it's worth, I'll specifically say I think Stability AI is one of the best alternatives to OpenAI. If you want to get exposure to AI, you can just go buy Microsoft stock. I mean, that's one way to do it. However, you get a lot of other things that are included with that. I think something like Stability AI, because what happens is they basically have both compute and a desire to release things for open source. But you need to see basically who is involved in basically the project. There are some AI communities, and you can basically trace their commits and see if they're actually relevant. There are not that many relevant people in the AI space. There's probably about 1,000 people globally who are actively involved in the development of that. Because what happens is if you start using ChatGPT is great. However, the problem is all AI will get outdated every 6 months. So if you basically look at how AI was, and that's going to continue to be the case. So you have to realize that just because someone's using technology now, you have to think about, do they have a moat in their data? Do they have something distinct? And then also, are they using their own model, or are they using someone's basically cloud source model? Because if they're using a cloud model, say ChatGPT, and they're using publicly available data, what happens is as that company starts to succeed, someone else realizes there's no moat, and it probably takes 2 or 3 weeks total to build the whole product. So the actual amount of time it takes to build AI, because the coding that you do for it is significantly less than it used to be, so it's a lot easier to build new applications, which also means there's a lot less of a moat. So when I think about companies, I think about what is the size of their community, Very specifically, I take a look at sort of their Discord. If you want to know very specifically, I look at people's Discord profiles. And Stability AI has 16,000 people in their basically community, and that's basically 16,000 developers helping to build the product. So when you meet someone and they're a company and they have 3 developers, I don't think they're going to beat 16,000 developers. So you have to think about sort of the sheer development power, and it's very hard to compete with some of these large organizations, which is why having the open source organizations with the community gives you a good chance to having sustainability. The other things that you'll see very good on the AI side, I think things that are related to medtech, I think those companies are going to be very valuable. Mostly because if you think about, so that's the space that has been mostly unexplored. So as someone who's been involved in sort of all of these closed betas, the whole ethical thing, behind the scenes, they basically did not want people doing significant research in medical science and law because they considered those things too ethically dangerous. So there has not been that much progress in those spaces specifically, which means that's probably where the next innovation comes from. So medical stuff and basically lawyers. Like honestly, much of the job of lawyers can actually be replaced with AI too. So you have to think about sort of where that is. And the other thing that's very interesting in AI is actually the idea of art. So AI is actually changing the way that art works. So there's a lot of people that think that AI is sort of getting rid of art and replacing art. It's not doing that. What it's doing is it's creating a new type of artist. And this artist is basically an AI graphics designer. Because it is an art to figure out how to get from the model the thing that you want. So you want it to say, I want to see a picture of a cat floating from the sky shaped as a coffee bean in a spoon, right? How do you actually get one of these things to produce that? Likewise, if you're trying to get ChatGPT to give you something specific, you might not always get it. It's going to give you something that sounds good, but it might not actually answer your question. So there becomes an art form in understanding just how to act with the model, because what happens is the people that build the models themselves honestly don't really know exactly how they're going to react to things in the end, because the way that the models end up getting built, that after a few rounds, they have their own sort of idea. So the person that built the model might not actually be the person that is best suited to sort of produce the results from the model. So it creates basically a type of people that specialize in understanding how to get results from the model, and that's actually not necessarily a technical job. It's much more of an artistic job, in which case there's a lot more of a moat, because there's like a skill to that. And like an example is like in Bangladesh, there's a company I work with. So Bangladesh does a lot of, I would say, physical labor, clothes. People know about that. The other thing they do is they have people who are employed in the garment industry who now do digital photo touch-ups. So there's I know a company, they have 500 people who now does digital photo touch-ups. These are all people that can become AI artists, as an example. So people that are involved in the garment industry can basically transition over from some of what they're doing to sort of figure out how to specialize in getting AI to sort of produce what they're looking for, and so that gives the sustainability. So just to sum it up, basically, 1, is someone using open source or not? Are they reliant on a technology that might get outdated quickly? 2, do they have a moat from basically either a unique type of data, or that they're fine-tuning a global market, or they have their own localized market? And the third is basically art, right? That's sort of the thing. Is there art, ethics, medicine, those types of things? Is there some component of that that's just simply beyond just purely the data, where someone is sort of making a decision, like what data are they selecting? How are they thinking about the data? How do you sort of populate the entire mind of sort of your AI, as it will? But if you really want the simplest thing, though, I still say the easiest way to differentiate an AI startup is just ask them about the number of parameters in their model. That happens to be the most effective question. If you had to pick one specific thing, that usually will filter out the bulk of startups, and then you can decide, do you think the startup is basically in a protectable state with a moat? So first, do they have good technology? Ask them about number of parameters. Then, do they have a moat in their data? If the answer is yes, good investment.
Thank you very much. Exactly as some of the reasons Peter has shared, that is why our conference is not called AI, but Investable Brains in the Age of AI. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for those distinctions. Nии, I think you had a follow-up for that? Please.
I want to very enthusiastically agree with Peter and also disagree with him. Peter is
I love those moments, please.
Peter is very savvy, so you should listen to him. Some of what he says. But in the same way that we have to use AI as a tool, use Peter's advice as advice, right? Opinion. Peter is an early investor in stability and crucial for its growth and development, so he knows a lot about it. We are a little bit biased. AIC invested in OpenAI, so there's significant power to OpenAI. Open source is interesting, and it is going to be crucial for global development innovation. The same way global public cloud is crucial for global development in compute resources. There are also closed models outside of OpenAI that we should consider. If you're an enterprise customer like Visa, who doesn't use AI yet, you could start looking at enterprise-ready, smaller models that know how to work with enterprise customers in a way that stability and OpenAI don't. For example, Aleph Alpha. They're raising right now, by the way, so if Visa is interested. Aleph Alpha is a German-based company that understands what's called explainability, which is how explaining to the enterprise customers what data source from the customer it used to generate the answers it generated. And customers need that. Visa needs that because Visa can't blank say, well, ChatGPT told me to do this for my business. So consider that as a solution too.
Thank you very much, Nии. By the way, we're an AI and wealth startup. Yeah, to Visa too. Yeah, thank you very much. Just before we go to the next question, before I forgot, if you have any important announcements, if Alpha Intelligence Capital or Ankylos Bangladesh, anything you want to share with it, it's recorded, it's going to be live, everyone's going to see it. If you want to share anything, please feel free to do so. If not, that's okay.
I'll just quickly follow up. I appreciate basically the closed source. I think we're going to agree to disagree here. But I also think that if you're looking to get quick deployment, honestly, the enterprise solutions are better. It's just a question, if you think about it, if you want your AI business to be worth $1 billion, that $5 million you spent up front to basically make sure it is separate and you own your infrastructure, or at least the ability to scale it, will differentiate you. It's pretty hard to have a $1 billion company built based on ChatGPT because you have no moat. So basically, you have to think about sort of where, if you're using the technology, there's a lot of good places to have the closed source, but you need to make sure that it's not the only thing you have. So if you're plugging it into basically a broader institution, there's a lot of really great, valuable aspects. Because if you're setting up, basically the time it takes to set up an open source solution is probably 2 to 3 months, and the time it takes to do an enterprise solution is 2 to 3 days. So if you're not willing to commit the time and you basically want to experiment with the software, I think the enterprise solutions are actually fantastic starting points. It's just if you decide that this is something that you want to make into like $1 billion business, you might want to think about bringing some of your own solutions in-house.
Thank you very much. Wonderful dialogue. Denise, I know you want to join in, please.
Yeah, just maybe a small comment on the initial question about which companies may drive the adoption of AI and who will be the leading. Another point here is that, and Nии and Peter have mentioned a lot about data, and I think data is really important for context, because usually this is something that ChatGPT may not be able to solve, or just any other general language, large language models. I'm just wanted just to quickly share the example of some companies. Like, for example, we have a company in edtech space called Brainly. So it's a question answer platform for kids, and 400 million kids use them every month. So basically, how they manage to extract value from AI. So they partner with OpenAI like for a year already. So they've been very early in this. And basically, very simple use case. There's a kid in the US who asks ChatGPT, what is the energy mix in a city in Florida? And ChatGPT gives the answer. And it's completely wrong. It's just wrong. And this kid uses this answer to, well, do the homework or do the test and basically, well, gets bad marks. So in this particular case, ChatGPT didn't have the context. So what the Brainly managed to do, they integrated ChatGPT and they provided the context because they have a lot of data on where this kid is located, which school he's going to, which students' books he uses. And this question was basically in the context that this particular kid from this grade is looking for an answer from this student book for this particular use case. And that the energy mix, you can refer to a particular page of a student book, and there is the right answer. And this is where probably companies, like Brainly is just an example, but what I'm getting to is that, of course, OpenAI and other companies, they provide the technology. But it's really crucial to enable the context of using this technology in particular use cases. And I think in this case, companies with a lot of data, like Google, for example, frankly, I'm really bullish on BART rather than ChatGPT because just, well, considering the amount of data they have. So I think that's, well, that really important factor to consider as well for AI.
Thank you. There's a follow-up, I know. Just wanted to say the same happens when you ask ChatGPT financial questions. And we're working to correct that, our company, by the way. Thank you very much. Pedro, please, your follow-up.
Microphones are killing us. No, just adding, I mean, a lot of the conversation here is around AI and which companies are going to change the world with AI. I think what's more exciting is when we stop talking about AI. It's actually that we made it safe, it's now seamless as part of everything else that we're building. And the companies that are actually changing the world are the ones that will embed it as part of their products and services, and we don't even know, right? That's the exciting part of AI, and it's a few years down the road.
Thank you very much. Can I just follow up on that, Pedro? There was another question. There are two ChatGPT questions here. Question considering the profile. It's not always perfect, but considering your broad base of investments, how broadly 500 global deals, where does that leave you in terms of emerging technologies? Where does that leave you on focusing with key innovators, distinguishing between hype and high potential?
Not sure I fully understand the
Blame
question.
the AI, please.
ChatGPT, can you rephrase it, please?
Sorry, it's gonna take.
No, I think so. What it does is, on one hand, obviously, we do now explicitly ask ourselves the question: is this a company that may get disrupted by the implementation of AI in the space, or can they use AI as a moat for whatever they're building?
Let me try to clarify it. Probably because you deal so much with early stage, sometimes the very early stage. Mm-hmm. What are some of the factors that you can share in those decision-making metrics?
I mean, we invest in very early stage. In fact, we do look for things that could be moonshots, but we need to understand a tangible use case somehow. So we're early stage, but not that big of a fund typically that we can invest in the moonshot without understanding what that means if we actually get to the moon. I don't know if you follow the analogy, right? So again, we look for what they're building, and we try to understand if AI is a core factor or a differentiating factor for what they're building, or if it can be a disruptor for what they're building. And then very importantly, I didn't talk about it earlier, is the team behind it, right? And by understanding the skill sets in the team, you will know if they're just using basic off-the-shelf models with a minimal number of parameters, and they're just pitching you BS, or you can actually go deeper and understand if the team knows what they're talking about, and that's also very important. We invest probably 50% of the bet is in the team, so they better know what they're talking about.
Thank you very much. So we're getting some very important distinctions today. Put the gun in the right hands, the trifecta, the right people, the amount of data, and buying, if you're looking for the needle in the haystack, buy the haystack. That's how I understand Denise's comment. Sanjar, again, a follow-up from our external panelist. So we gave a bit of data as well, and there was a lot on currency cloud. And we're interested in that because we're a wealth tech startup and we often partner with fintech for transactions. So there is personal interest in there too. So if I might direct that question in a more updated manner on top of what ChatGPT gave me. Currency cloud, hype or high potential? What are your plans around it? What are your plans around it in Central Asia? And how can companies like myself partner with that particular technology that we like very much? Please, more about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So Currency Cloud was one of the latest acquisition by Visa. So we acquired some companies in the, we call it like network of network. So we are coming out from like card perspective company to more like card of network of networks. So we give like give emphasize that we can now send to wallets, to accounts, to cards. So it's just, you know, the matter of the choice of the businesses, consumers, and the governments, how they want to use the Visa now. So in terms of Currency Cloud, what it gives us is just another step how we can embed treasury service. So because Currency Cloud was very particular, great in that perspective, and maybe for the audience, if they don't know, like Revolut, Penta, and all these great fintech companies, they're using Currency Cloud to open these cross-border accounts and to move money across the board like swiftly, easily, and with the best FX rates. So in terms of the Central Asian and our whole region, we currently estimating how we can use Currency Cloud in our region. So there is still regulatory approvals. They need to open the local company in order to get all the regulatory licenses. They have the license now in UK, Singapore, UK, Europe, and US. I think it's Australia also is in their portfolio. But this region will be also like CEMEA region. It's more than 90 countries in the, from like Cape Town to Almaty. And will be covered in years' time, and hopefully, you know, all the fintech companies can be easily connect with like open APIs to this platform. So yeah, we're just looking forward to this opportunity in the next 2-3 years.
Beautiful, thank you very much. Also, there was a message from your team that there is a program that is going on. Please, more about that.
Yeah, so we have Visa Everywhere initiative. That's a global program that Visa initiated a couple years ago. We have more than 12,000 startups already in this network. So we actually pick these solutions and the startups we want either to invest or to acquire. And all the previous acquisition that we made, like Yellow Peppers, Currency Cloud that you mentioned, that we previously invested through this program. So we actually urge and eager and require actually the startups from our region to register in this program for the next year, because this year batch is already closed, and the awareness will be covered not only in the region, but is supported by TechCrunch, that the finals will be in years time in San Francisco. So that's again great first step for the startups and fintechs to be part of Visa network.
Thank you very much. And we have 2 minutes left. One last question from the audience, please. Спасибо большое. Последний вопрос.
Hello, thank you very much. If to switch from AI and to space, do you think that now when thousands of spacecraft are on orbit, is it hype or potential?
Yes, thank you. Wonderful question, considering that we are in a country where the first human spaceflight took place from. Wonderful question. I know, Denise, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Although we do not really invest in space, this is like my personal passion. I've been researching on this for quite some time. I think space really had a hype during the Cold War, right? It was kind of an artificial hype, but it was a hype. And it basically led to a lot of achievements that spurred the development of a lot of technologies that then were applied for other industries, right? Like internet, for example. Right now, it's very interesting because actually space exploration requires a huge amount of investments and huge amount of commitment without like clear, or maybe with a very long-term clear return on investments. And in this case, I think this is another factor that we should consider when we're judging like whether the technology will survive its hype or there will be another winter. So I think personally that space is not there yet in because of this factor, because just the costs for developing the infrastructure to really generate the returns that investors, not government programs, but real like private investors would see, is just not there yet. It will require like more achievements in terms of the cost to send satellites to space, or the energy sources. Probably we'll need to wait for nuclear fusion to appear before we really see like large scale flights towards Mars or Moon. But I think I think this is one of the areas where we will see another hype, but maybe in 10 or 20 years. So yeah, there are just too many prerequisites for its development. But that's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize. I'm being informed we are out of time. If that's okay with you, I'll just close this down with some closing remarks. Thank you very much. First of all, yes, there has been a lot of conversation about AI, but for the ChatGPT questions to come out, we needed a member of our team to do the prompts. That's why this conference is called Investable Brains in the Age of AI. And this here are some of the most investable brains on this forum. So if you have time, I would certainly invest my time and try to learn. So I advise everyone to do that, to learn from these wonderful people. And also, as I have previously shared, a lot of you have traveled from afar, or the companies have traveled from afar. And in the nomadic spirit, when someone comes from afar, it's a celebration. So thank you very much. We celebrate your arrival. Cheers.